Behind me is Badwater Basin. This is the lowest point in North America, and we're here at a very special time because there's actually water there. Now, this used to be a lake during the Ice Age. That all ended about 12,000 years ago, and every once in a blue moon you will get some water here, and there's some water here right now, which you'll get to see. Very, very rare. It's questionable whether I will ever see this in my life again, so I'm excited. I'm going to take you on a hike along Dante's Ridge to Mount Perry, and we're going to be right up above Badwater Basin. We're going to be able to see the lake. We're going to be able to see a landscape that was named after what people thought hell looked like. It's beautiful. Not a bad hell, a good hell, I guess. And at the end, we'll get to Mount Perry, where if it's clear out, we'll be able to see to Mount Whitney, which is the highest point in the lower 48, and see down to Badwater Basin, the lowest point here in the United States, all at the same time. So really fun hike. I'm excited to show you the scenery, take you along. So let's hit the trail and go. The hike is in Death Valley National Park, the largest national park outside of Alaska, and it's kind of somewhere in between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. The trailhead is up at Dante's View, which even if you're not going to do this hike and you're in Death Valley, go to Dante's View because I think it is the best viewpoint here in the park. There's a large parking area, but it will get full at certain times. There's no bathrooms here, no water, but there are bathrooms slightly down the road. The hike is about 9 miles. It's an out and back along Dante's Ridge. I'd call it a moderate hike with about 2,100 feet of climbing. There's a bit of a downhill, then an uphill to Mount Perry. And then when you get there, you just turn around and go back the way you came, which means a downhill and then an uphill back to the start here. The trail starts at the northern end of the parking lot. There's a bunch of little trails here to different viewpoints, but this is the one that you're going to go to. And there's a lot of little use trails, especially in the beginning for people exploring coming out of the parking lot. We're going to stay on the west side to the left here on the ridge and go around. And this first part is spectacular. This is kind of a taste of what we're going to get, but this part kind of brings you around the edge. This is the actual Dante's View. And if this looks familiar as you look out here, if you're a Star Wars fan, this is where Luke Skywalker and Ben Kenobi looked out over Mos Eisley.
Mos Eisley Spaceport. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Scum, villainy, and hikers. Look how beautiful this is. The trail, as you can see, winds out in front of us. It's pretty easy to follow. It's not really hard. Some sections get a little rocky later, but look at those views down at the Badwater Basin. It's a little hazy today, but on a clear day, you can see all the way into the Sierras from here. And if you look down from here, you're going to get nice views of all the sediment that came down out of the Black Hills here into Badwater Basin during the flooding that caused this lake. Now, in the Ice Age, there was a huge lake called Lake Manly here, and this is when mammoths roamed the earth and all of that. It dried up about 12,000 years ago, leaving the salt flats and the sand dunes and everything. But when it was there, it was about 500 to 600 feet deep, according to scientists. But fast forward to 2023, we got Hurricane Hillary slamming into Southern California, dumping a huge amount of rain here in Death Valley National Park. The park was closed for months. A lot of the roads were destroyed. It was a mess here, and it's slowly been opening up. But if you look at these NASA satellite photos, you could see how the lake was reformed and is now evaporating again. There's 2 inches of average rainfall here in Death Valley, and we have about 140 to 150 inches of evaporation each year. But looking down, this is where the lake would have been now, and now we can still see a little bit of that water from the leftovers of Hillary. And after a little bit of up and down along these viewpoints here, we're going to come to a saddle and be able to see to the east and get nice views of Mount Charleston, which is one of my favorite hikes here. That's a great one. I have that on my website and a video for that. I will probably redo that next year because it's a nice one. But now it is snowy, not really doable. And at this point after the saddle, we're going to start going downhill. And in the distance over there is Mount Perry. And you can see all of the little false summits along the way. A little disheartening when you're there, but this is a great viewpoint, and you can see all of the different colors and why the people who ran the Harmony Borax Company here named this Dante's View after Dante's Inferno and Dante's vision of what hell looked like. Now, once you get the view of Mount Perry, we have a long downhill, which obviously you have to come back up when you come back, but it's a nice easy trail, pretty cruisy and relatively easy to follow. You can see there's kind of different sections here, but the trail is always pretty visible. And this section of trail does have some white markings. It's the only markings that we'll find on the trail at this point. So if you do get lost, look for these white blazes, and you should be okay. If you do want to load the GPX file on your phone, I have it on my website. You can download it there. Just search for Hiking Guy, Mount Perry, and you will find that along with all of these directions, which you can save to your phone or print out as well. Oh, good place to take a break before I do the final climb up there. In terms of gear, obviously you're going to want to bring a lot of water. Don't do this in the summer. Trekking poles help, trail runners, satellite communicator, all your standard backcountry hiking gear before you come here. If you don't know what that is, just go to my gear page, just search for Hiking Guy, best hiking gear, and you will find it. But I'm glad I came here. It's so beautiful. I almost didn't come. The water's been there for maybe a month. The park has been open for maybe a month or so, and I thought of 100 reasons why I had other things to do, and one day I was just like, I'm gonna regret it if I don't go and see this. So this is gonna be a 20-hour day or so. I carved a day out from family, work, all of that to come up here and see it. Drove up through the desert, and I'm gonna do this hike and then drive home tonight. So definitely worth it. Definitely worth the drive, even though I'm not a big fan of driving, 11, 12 hours in a day. But anyway, let me have some water and let's get going. Now, as we continue downhill, you can see all the different colors here. Some of this is sandstone, some of it is rock that's been oxidized because of the minerals in there, the metallic minerals. But overall, it's just really beautiful. I mean, the colors and the different colors of rock are just spectacular. And you can see as we look here in this last stretch of downhill, you can see the trail stretching out in front of us and then up towards the false summits and then Mount Perry all the way on the left over there. All right, that's all the downhill. Now we're going to start the uphill. Now this uphill is, it's steeper than the downhill that we just did, and it's not too tough, but you can see there are little scrambles and little sections like this where you're not going to be able to just cruise uphill, but rather you're going to have to pick your way through and look for where the trail is. It's not all like that though. You can see there are some wider sections where it's just a steep uphill, good old steep uphill. Now at one point you're going to crest a ridge and you're going to see the first false summit in the distance. That's the really rocky one there. There are some people that I captured up on top of there. They thought that was the end of the hike. It actually wasn't. But when you look at this, it's going to look a little bit scary. It's going to look pretty treacherous and pretty narrow, but it's not too bad. Once you get up there, you'll see there is a path. Down to the right is the Greenwater Valley and the Greenwater Range. Off to the left, of course, is the Badwater Basin. Those are the panoramic mountains over on the left-hand side. But you can see here, as we start going up it, it's not as narrow as it looks from that approach there. Now, as you get to the top of this one section, there's a lot of scree. It's kind of hard going across the rocks. You have to really concentrate and pick your way through. Then once you get to the top of this false summit, you still have a handful of other false summits to go. But it's not really as tough as that. There are some narrower sections, but in general, it's not too bad. You can see the narrow section here. And it's a little bit hard. You have to pick your way through. Nothing is so steep that if you fall off the side, you're going to drop thousands of feet. You probably could do it if you really tried. But in general, it's wide enough that if you're careful and you go slow, you should be okay. Then after a few false summits, you'll come to the actual summit, which is the highest point here at the end. And you get nice views up to the north, up towards Furnace Creek, the northern part of Death Valley National Park. And what I especially like are all the different colors here. This is just sort of uphill from Artist's Palette, which is a popular drive that you can do down in the park. But you get a lot of the same sort of feel, a lot of the different colors, different layers of rock. I couldn't see Mount Whitney today, but that is White Mountain Peak, which is only a couple of 100 feet lower than Mount Whitney. And then, of course, down to the south, Badwater Basin, there's the water again, and just incredible views. The high mountain across there, and the Panamints is Telescope Peak. That's the highest peak in Death Valley National Park. Also a great hike that I have on my website and on the channel. And there's a trail register here too. Once you're done looking around, I'd say grab a bite and then prepare to head back along the ridge and back to the start. I said earlier that this is a moderate hike. This is like a borderline moderate hard, even though there's not a ton of elevation gain. There's a lot of up and down, and on some of the narrow parts, you really have to concentrate, so it takes a little bit more out of you than just cruising down a trail. But anyway, guys, I hope you can come and do this. If you have any questions about the hike, please leave me a comment, but this is definitely an underrated gem here in Southern California, so hopefully you get a chance to do it. And if you want to do harder hikes or easier hikes here in Death Valley, other hikes, I have all of those on my website, HikingGuy.com, and also on my channel. So just check that out. And a big thank you to all of the people who support this channel. You might have noticed this video had no ads in it or sponsorships, and that's because of help from you guys. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you out in the trails one day. All right, guys. See you later.